What if I told you that the Bible, the sacred book we hold so dear, might not be the whole story? What if the word we've been taught was edited, trimmed, and stripped of truths that could shake the very foundation of Christianity as we know it? High in the mountains of Africa, an ancient people preserved a scripture the rest of the world tried to erase. A text whispered through centuries, guarded in the fire of faith. A text that tells of angels and heavenly time, of cosmic law and divine rebellion. A book banned, buried, and yet unbroken. I'm talking about the Book of Jubilees, the Little Genesis. A sacred text hidden for 2,000 years in the Ethiopian Bible. But why? Why would they hide a book that dares to reveal the calendar of God himself? A calendar not of the moon, but of the sun? Why silence a text that speaks of angels, of cosmic laws, and of a divine time that mankind has long since abandoned? Today, we're pulling back the veil. We're stepping into the lost gospel of the ages, the book that Africa kept while the world forgot. Before we go any further, drop a 77 in the comments, a sign that your spirit is awake and tuned to the truth. Now, let's begin. Genesis tells us that God made the heavens and the earth in 6 days, but the Book of Jubilees reveals a deeper mystery. Before there was life, there was time. God didn't simply create existence, he arranged it in divine rhythm. Every beat of the universe, every sunrise and Sabbath, every turn of the season, all were written upon the heavenly tablets, eternal records guarded by the angels of heaven. These angels were not distant spirits hovering at the edge of creation. They were governors of the cosmos, appointed to keep the world in balance. The Book of Jubilees calls them the angels of the presence, radiant beings who serve before God's throne, the angels of the winds who stir the breath of the earth, and the angels of the sun, moon, and stars who oversee the dance of celestial bodies. Together they functioned as the divine timekeepers of eternity, ensuring that the universe moved in perfect harmony with its Creator's will. But when humanity turned away from that sacred order, something in creation broke. Jubilees teaches that God's calendar, the solar year of 364 perfect days divided into 52 flawless weeks, was given as a holy pattern, a way for mankind to walk in rhythm with heaven. Yet over time we abandoned this path, replacing it with the imperfect lunar calendar used by empires, temples, and nations. In doing so, humanity fell out of sync with God himself. Time, as Jubilees declares, is holy. It is not a man-made system of clocks and dates, but a heartbeat, the pulse of the divine. To live outside of that pulse is to live in spiritual confusion. The solar calendar, still kept by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, preserves that divine symmetry. But when the Western Church banned Jubilees, it didn't merely silence an ancient book, it silenced the clock of heaven. But that was only the beginning, because the Book of Jubilees does not simply repeat Genesis. It reveals the parts Genesis leaves in shadow. It dares to speak of the ancient rebellion that began not on earth, but in heaven itself. When the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men, it was not a moment of mere desire, it was defiance. These celestial beings, known as the Watchers, had been sent to guide humanity, to protect creation, and to keep knowledge sacred. Yet pride and temptation overtook them. They descended from their divine stations and chose to walk among mortals, trading holiness for passion and authority for corruption. The Watchers shared secrets never meant for human hands. The arts of war, the hidden sciences, the seductions of adornment and sorcery. From their union with women came monstrous offspring, the Nephilim, beings of immense stature and insatiable hunger, born of heaven and earth. These giants devoured all that existed, first the crops of men, then the beasts of the field, and at last each other. The world sank into bloodshed, its harmony shattered beneath the weight of hybrid sin. God looked upon his creation, corrupted beyond recognition, and spoke the word that echoed through eternity: enough. The flood was not just punishment, it was purification, a cleansing of cosmic corruption. Yet even as the waters receded, the stain of rebellion endured. Jubilees reveals a truth Genesis only hints at. The death of the Nephilim did not end their evil. Their bodies perished, but their spirits, restless, vengeful, unholy, remained. These disembodied entities became demons, the wandering forces that still plague the world. Their leader was Mastema, the dark accuser, a prince of ruin who stood before God and pleaded, "Let me keep a tenth, that I may test the hearts of men." And in divine wisdom, God allowed it, not as cruelty, but as judgment, so that faith might be proven through trial. From that day to this, the battle continues. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the leftover spirits of that ancient rebellion, the shadows of the Nephilim, the echoes of disobedient angels. And if that truth doesn't make you reconsider the evil that stalks this world, the wars, the hatred, the oppression, the blindness of souls, then perhaps we have forgotten what heaven has been trying to tell us since the dawn of time. After the storm had passed and the waters of judgment receded, a single righteous man stood as the bridge between two worlds, Noah, the remnant of grace in an age of ruin. Yet the Book of Jubilees reveals something Genesis only whispers. Long before Moses ever ascended Mount Sinai, Noah had already received the law. God entrusted him with commands of purity, sacrifice, and sacred rest, divine instructions to rebuild creation in holiness. The first Sabbath after the flood was not merely a day of rest, but a renewal of covenant, a reminder that even after destruction, time itself still belonged to God. According to Jubilees, Noah also observed the Feast of Weeks, the same holy festival that would later be called Pentecost. It was Noah, not Moses, who first celebrated this day of thanksgiving, offering sacrifice to honor the God who had delivered him. The distinction between clean and unclean, the order of worship, and the rhythm of sacred time, all these were restored through Noah as the world began again. And when it came time to divide the earth among his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah did not act on human wisdom. The Book of Jubilees declares that the boundaries of nations were drawn by divine decree, written on the heavenly tablets. The lands of Cush and Ethiopia were not accidents of migration, but ordained inheritance. Africa was chosen ground, consecrated soil. So when the nations of the earth dare to curse what God has blessed, let them remember, the map of heaven cannot be redrawn by empire or colonizer. The covenant of light that began with Noah still shines upon the lands that God himself declared holy. Then came Abraham, not the gentle, wandering patriarch we learned about in Sunday school, but a man of holy defiance, a prophet who dared to rebel against the gods of his father. The Book of Jubilees paints a vivid portrait of a young Abraham born into a house of idolatry. His father, Terah, bowed before stone images, lifeless works of his own hands. But one day something within Abraham ignited, a divine fire that refused to bow to falsehood. He shattered the idols, burned them before his family's eyes, and walked away from everything he had known to follow the voice of the one true God. That was not mere faith, it was revolution. Imagine it. A man of dark skin and holy conviction standing against his culture's traditions, declaring, "I will not serve what man has made, I will serve the maker of man." That same spirit of resistance still echoes through the hills of Ethiopia, in the monastic deserts of Africa, in the ancient church that never bowed to Rome's rule. It is the spirit of Abraham, the first revolutionary of faith. According to Jubilees, Abraham was not alone in his awakening. He was taught directly by the angels of the presence, who revealed to him the laws of heaven, the secrets of true worship, the Sabbath, the holy festivals, and the divine order written long before Sinai. They even taught him Hebrew, the language of creation itself. So when the Western Church proclaims that the law began with Moses, Jubilees answers with a whisper of eternity. No, the law began before time. The commandments were not inventions of men, they were revelations from heaven. The same laws written on celestial tablets, guarded by angels, and kept alive by Abraham and the faithful, who refused to let divine truth die in the darkness. Among all the mysteries revealed in the Book of Jubilees, none is more striking than its teaching about time itself. This ancient text declares that God did not leave humanity to measure days by guesswork or shifting shadows. He established a cosmic calendar, a perfect rhythm of 364 days, each year divided into 4 seasons of exactly 13 weeks. Every feast, every Sabbath, every holy day was set to align with this divine pattern, ensuring that creation moved in harmony with heaven. According to Jubilees, this solar calendar was revealed to Enoch, confirmed through Noah, and passed to Moses, a sacred order written on the heavenly tablets. but mankind turned away. As nations followed the moon's inconsistent cycle, the true rhythm of heaven was lost. The lunar calendar, with its wandering months and shifting festivals, broke the symmetry of God's order. The result was spiritual confusion. Holy days celebrated on false dates, sacred times stripped of meaning. The Book of Jubilees calls this not merely an error, but a corruption of divine law. For when humanity forgets God's appointed times, we step out of sync with His will. Yet the sacred order endures. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, standing firm against centuries of change, still honors a calendar that echoes this ancient design. 13 months in a year, balanced and complete. It remains a living witness that the Creator's time is not the world's time. To walk in the sacred calendar is to realign with heaven's heartbeat, to live as creation was meant to live, not bound by human clocks, but moving to the eternal rhythm God set before the sun ever rose. Long before the flood, before empires or kings, the ground of creation drank its first blood. The Book of Jubilees retells the story of Cain and Abel, not merely as a family tragedy, but as the moment when sin scarred the very fabric of the world. Cain's envy burned hotter than his sacrifice, and when God accepted Abel's offering but rejected his own, bitterness took root. Ignoring the divine warning that sin crouches at the door, Cain lured his brother into the open field, and there, the first innocent life was taken. But according to Jubilees, this act went far beyond human violence. The murder violated a law that had existed before creation itself, already inscribed on the heavenly tablets. You shall not shed innocent blood. When Cain struck Abel, he shattered an eternal command. The earth itself responded, defiled and cursed. The book describes how the ground, polluted by Abel's blood, lost its fruitfulness. Crops withered, and nature turned against the hand that had once tended it. The harmony of creation was broken. Death and decay entered the rhythm of life. This was not simply a curse upon Cain, it was a wound upon the world. Jubilees teaches that every act of violence since then echoes that first crime. The earth still groans beneath the weight of spilled blood, crying out to heaven for justice. What began as envy became a fracture between humanity and creation, between the creature and the Creator. Through this story, Jubilees reminds us that sin is never private. It ripples through the soil, the seasons, and the generations, until only divine mercy can heal the curse that changed the earth forever. The story of Joseph is often told as one of betrayal turned to triumph, but the Book of Jubilees uncovers a far deeper layer, one that reaches into heaven itself. Joseph's brothers, consumed by jealousy over their father's love and Joseph's prophetic dreams, conspired against him. They sold him into slavery, faked his death, and deceived their father with blood on a torn coat. Yet, according to Jubilees, this act was not merely a crime of men. It was a sin so grave that it was recorded on the heavenly tablets, etched into the eternal archives of God's justice. In heaven's record, every deed carries weight. The betrayal of Joseph became a spiritual debt, a wound that would echo through generations. While Genesis focuses on reconciliation and forgiveness, Jubilees reveals that repentance itself was also written beside the sin. The same tablets that preserved the crime also contained the path to redemption. When the brothers finally bowed before Joseph in Egypt, their remorse was not only seen by him, but by heaven itself. Their repentance, like their betrayal, was inscribed in divine memory. This cosmic accounting teaches a profound truth. Nothing escapes God's notice. Every injustice, every secret cruelty, every unspoken act of mercy, all are recorded before the throne. The sins that destroy families and nations are not forgotten, yet neither are the tears of those who turn back to righteousness. In Jubilees, Joseph's forgiveness is not weakness, it is participation in the divine order, a restoration of balance between heaven and earth. It reminds us that forgiveness, too, is sacred law, capable of erasing even the darkest entries written in the books of eternity. Among the divine revelations preserved in the Book of Jubilees, few shine as brightly as the law of the land, the sacred rhythm of rest and renewal, known as the Jubilee cycle. Just as God sanctified the seventh day as a Sabbath, He extended that holiness into the fabric of years. Every seventh year, the land itself was to rest. No sowing, no reaping, no pursuit of profit. It was a pause in the world's endless striving, a reminder that creation belongs not to man, but to God. Then, after 7 cycles of 7 years, 49 in total, came the year of Jubilee, the 50th year, a time when freedom and justice would flood the earth like a holy tide. In the Jubilee year, debts were canceled, slaves were set free, and ancestral lands returned to their rightful families. It was more than law, it was divine reset, an act of mercy woven into the world's design. Through this rhythm, God ensured that no generation would be forever bound by the greed or mistakes of the past. The earth itself rejoiced in rest, and the poor tasted liberty again. The Book of Jubilees declares that these cycles were not human inventions but eternal decrees written on the heavenly tablets. To ignore them, it warns, is to invite ruin, famine, exile, and oppression. Yet to honor them is to live in harmony with heaven's justice. The Jubilee law teaches that time, land, and freedom all flow from God's hand. And when humanity restores this sacred balance, we do not merely heal society, we realign the world with the Creator's perfect rhythm of redemption. The Book of Jubilees unveils the Exodus not merely as a political liberation, but as a cosmic war, a battle fought on 2 fronts, heaven and earth. When Moses stood before Pharaoh demanding freedom for God's people, it was not just a confrontation between 2 men, but between 2 kingdoms, the kingdom of light and the empire of darkness. Behind Egypt's throne, Jubilees reveals, lurked Mastema, the prince of evil spirits, orchestrating resistance against God's will. Each plague that struck Egypt was not random punishment, but a strategic blow against the false gods who ruled its land. The Nile turning to blood shamed the river deity. The plague of darkness mocked the sun god Ra. The death of the firstborn broke Pharaoh's pride and silenced the spirits that demanded human sacrifice. Every act of divine judgment was also a dismantling of demonic power, proof that no earthly or spiritual authority could stand against the Creator. Jubilees even records that Mastema himself sought to destroy Moses before his mission began, trying to suffocate the deliverer chosen by God. But the angels of heaven intervened, binding Mastema until the time of Israel's departure. When the Red Sea finally split, it was more than water parting. It was heaven's victory made visible, the forces of darkness broken beneath waves of divine glory. Thus, the plagues were not only signs of God's wrath, but symbols of his supremacy, a message echoing through time. When heaven wages war for the oppressed, no pharaoh, no demon, no empire can stand against his will. At the summit of Mount Sinai, amid thunder and cloud, Moses received not only the law, but also a vision, a prophecy that stretched beyond his own lifetime. The Book of Jubilees reveals that the angel of the presence showed Moses the entire future of Israel, their faithfulness and their rebellion, their rise and their fall, their exile and their ultimate redemption. The angel spoke of a time when Israel would turn away from God's commandments, when the temple would be defiled and the people scattered among the nations. But woven through the sorrow was a promise that the covenant would never die. The prophecy declared that after great suffering, a day of awakening would come. The people would remember the law written on the heavenly tablets and return to God with pure hearts. Then the Lord would gather them again, restoring them to their land and renewing his covenant of peace. Evil would be judged, Mastema and his spirits bound, and righteousness would fill the earth. In the end, Jubilees proclaims, God's kingdom will be established forever. A new heaven and a new earth where his law is written not on stone but upon the hearts of the righteous. It is a vision of restoration, reminding every generation that though humanity may stray, the divine plan marches on, and the light of redemption can never be extinguished. And so the Book of Jubilees ends not with silence, but with a call, a whisper from eternity, reminding us that the story of creation is still unfolding within us. What was hidden in Ethiopia's mountains, what the world tried to erase, has risen again to awaken those with ears to hear. The laws of heaven, the rhythm of divine time, the promise of redemption, they are not relics of the past, they are the blueprint for our future. If these revelations stirred your spirit, don't let the fire fade. Share this truth. Let others hear what history tried to bury. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and join our growing community of seekers, those who hunger for the deeper word the unfiltered light of God's truth. Because together, family, we're not just learning history, we're remembering heaven.